So we're talking about control today and the illusion of control. Actually, we are. And I've been looking through James, and I'm just struck by this idea that when we think we are in control, we often are not in control. Actually, one of the images that comes to mind for me is a fond image for me, but it's this image of shopping with young kids at Home Depot with a shopping cart that has a steering wheel. Do you know the ones I mean? Well, here's how it goes. The kids get in the shopping cart, and they turn the wheel, and they think they're driving. It's the illusion of control, but it works. And it's a fond memory, but what a way to think that we are driving our life and we're turning this wheel, but we're not really in control. Kind of reminds me a bit about being a sound person. Sometimes this happens. You say, I don't think this is loud enough, and they just go like this, and they pretend they're turning it up, and we think we've made a change. You don't really do that, do you? Yes, you do. Okay, it's confirmed. It happens. This illusion of control is actually, it's a psychological thing. It's a thing in psychology. And superstition grows out of this. This idea that maybe you notice that when you dumped out the milk by the fire, the rain stopped. And then that becomes a tradition where you dump out the milk by the fire and the rain stops. It's a superstition, illusion of control. We're controlling the rain by doing this. There's all sorts of ways it happens. How many people, not I, how many people avoid stepping on cracks so you don't break your mother's back? It's an illusion of control. You don't want to step on the cracks. How many people know about this? When you're in sports and you're in the playoffs, you don't change your shirt for the whole playoffs. If you've won the game, you leave that shirt on. You don't wash it. It's the illusion of control. You don't shave your beard because you shave it, you might lose a game. It's all about the illusion of control. Some people still have their beards. And we can ask, though, in a serious way, what areas of our life do we actually think we have control over that we don't? And is it freedom when I live under the illusion that I'm in control when I'm really not in control? Is that what freedom really is? Today we turn to James chapter 4, verses 13 to 17. And it's really an odd little passage. It's strange. It's strange for a couple of reasons. First, it's odd because it just doesn't seem to fit in the context. I mean, James is talking about all these things, and then bam, this thing's here, and it just seems to stick out. Scholars have talked about this passage for a long time, and they've wondered, why is this here? How does it flow? Where does it come from? It's just odd that way. Secondly, it's odd because of the way he directs it to people, the way he uses the grammar. The language is, hey, you, listen. It's like he's directing it right to people. It's not they did this. It's, hey, you. You'll hear the language. It's kind of aggressive. It's abrasive language. And it's really not a very comfortable passage, which as we're in our fourth Sunday with James, you'll realize that James isn't that concerned about comfort, is he? He actually thrives on making us a little bit uncomfortable. And he does a bit of finger pointing, it feels like. So he starts by telling a story directly to the listeners. It's short. It's just one verse. It seems innocent enough. It's about some merchants. This is James chapter 4, verses 13 to 17. This is what he says. Look here, you who say, today or tomorrow we are going to a certain town and will stay there for a year. We will do business there and make a profit. That's the story this whole thing hinges on, that little anecdote. Then he continues. How do you know what your life will be like tomorrow? Your life is like the morning fog. It's here a little while, then it's gone. What you ought to say is, if the Lord wants us to, we will live and do this or that. Otherwise, you are boasting about your own pretentious plans, and all such boasting is evil. Remember, it is a sin to know what you ought to do and then not do it. I wonder, first of all, who he's speaking to. Is he speaking directly to some merchants that travel around to sell their wares, sell their stuff in different towns, calling them out and pointing at them? Because imagine this in a congregation before they had the Bible. Someone would take this lambskin scroll and read it to the congregation. It would be a very comfortable position to be in, reading this. Is he isolating the merchants? I mean, there's probably merchants in each congregation. Imagine Joseph the farmer, the guy who grows the wheat. He's got chickpeas. He's got to sell it. He's got it all planned out. He knows when he's going to go. He knows where he's going because he has to go to a certain town. And he knows how much he needs for this to make some money. And then there's old Bill with his barrels of olives. He's got to sell these olives to plant his next crop and feed the family. He's got a plan. He's going to make some profit, and he knows where he's going. He's got to go to the port. What would they think? Was this addressed to them because they're merchants? Just imagine this person reading this, trying to avoid eye contact. It would be awkward, right? You know, you've got some merchants in your congregation, and you're reading it, and you're like kind of not looking at them. I've experienced things like that. Maybe you have too. Trying to avoid eye contact so it doesn't feel like you're calling them out, making himself really small. Not liking this. It's uncomfortable. Look here, you who decide to go on a trip on a certain date. You who say we know what town we're going to. You who say we plan on making a profit. Look here. You're dust. You're arrogant. You're sinners. It's a pretty hard word. Who is he talking to? Joseph? Old Bill? And what's he saying? What's he talking about? Could it be that he's saying, in life, you should never have a destination. You should never do any planning. That's evil. You shouldn't plan. Just leave the house and just end up where you end up. That's what you should do. Yet even Jesus and his disciples made plans, and they knew where they were going. They had a destination. It couldn't be that. Could it be? You should not be aware of time. It is a sin to look at your watch. Do not use a calendar. I don't think it could be that. I mean, James is this Old Testament type wisdom writer that writes in the New Testament, and he knows the value of a good plan, of foresight, of diligence. He believes in that sort of thing. I'm sure he's aware of Proverbs 2:15. Good planning and hard work lead to prosperity, but hasty shortcuts lead to poverty. He's aware of all those things. It couldn't be that. Could it be it's wrong to make a profit? You shouldn't make any money. It's a sin to make money. You go on a Facebook Marketplace, you must sell it for the price you paid for it and not make any money. Well, we usually take a loss, but just imagine. You sell your house, sell it for the price you paid for it. You have a business, aim to not make any money. That's what you do. Someone said that's easy. I don't think that's what he's getting at. I mean, you think of the parable of the three servants. Remember, the one who made no money was condemned, and the one who made the most money was thought of as a faithful servant? He's not against making a profit. He's not cutting into the very nature of human existence where we go to work so we can buy food for our family. We all do that. It couldn't be that. What could it be? What is he telling us to? What is he talking about? Today, James is talking about the problem of this illusion of control, and he gives a solution to how we live our lives to break that illusion of control. So the first thing, the problem of the illusion of control. You know what the problem was? Is that they thought they were in complete control of everything. They were in complete control of everything. They were living under the illusion of control. This is what they thought they were in control of. According to James, you can look at verse 13. The merchants were arrogant. We will go. So James paints this picture of them having time under their control. And then we will spend a year at this location. The location is under their control. We will be making money. Money is under their control. It's all under their control. They've got it planned out. They've got a master plan. Nothing can go wrong. And because of this, they have a real prideful swagger in their walk. They're on top of the world. Nothing's going to stop them. They're going to make tons of money. Like the kings of this world, they walk into this town and they own it. They're makers of their own destiny. They've got everything ironed out. A strategic plan is nailed, and nothing's going to stop them. But the more serious problem here is this. They have misunderstood their relationship with God and their standing before God. They think they're godlike. This is the sin of hubris or pride, this extreme pride. So I was preparing for this message. I came across this fable. It's one of Aesop's fables. It's the fable of the wolf and his shadow. I was really captured by this fable because this just captures this really well. This wolf gets up in the morning and goes out of his den and thinks, I'm going to do some hunting today. So he goes out and walks, and the sun is shining in just a certain way, though, as he gets out of his den, that he looks over to Shadow and goes, I'm really big. I'm bigger than I thought I was. And he gets more powerful feeling and more powerful feeling as he's walking. And he's having these conversations with himself as he walks, like, look how big my teeth are. Look, I can't believe it. Can I do that? I can't. Look how big I am. I'm so powerful. Pretty soon he says, actually, I think you know what I'm going to have for breakfast? I'm going to have a lion for breakfast. I'm going to eat a lion because he's got this delusion, this illusion of being so huge. So he doesn't know it, but a lion sees him and just and eats the wolf for breakfast. That's the end of the story. It's the illusion of control. He is deluded. The wolf is deluded. And we are not in control like we think we are. We don't see things accurately. And it's harmful to live under this illusion of control. And the truth is, James develops and tells us, is that we're mortals. And we must understand that we are creation and God is creator. If we don't understand that, we're going to have a miserable existence that's not going to glorify God. And it's going to hurt ourselves and others. He says we are like mist. He says this in verse 14. How do you know what your life will be like tomorrow? Your life is like the morning fog. It's here a little while, and then it's gone. Your life is like fog, like mist. Just evaporates. Just, it's blown away. It's gone, just like that. Your life, you could get sick. You could get run over by a donkey as you're taking your olives in to sell. That could happen, right? You could get run over by a donkey. You could actually choke on a bad olive pit and die. All these things can happen. Think you're going to make money? Your ship that you're trading with could sink in a storm. You open your barrel of chickpeas and they're rotten. There's bugs in them. Your olive oil spills on your way there. You're not in charge of everything. Think you're in charge of time? You can get delayed. Your poor old donkey can get a sore hoof and refuse to walk. You're going to be late. You can get a broken wheel in your cart. You're not in control of these things like you think you are. And his language is evocative. It's like wisdom literature from Ecclesiastes, these images of timelessness and how bound in time we are, how mortal we are, that we've come from dust and to dust we shall return. It's like Hosea chapter 13, verse 8, which talks about us disappearing like the morning mist, like dew in the morning sun, like chaff blown by the wind, like smoke from a chimney. That's what human life is like, just blows away. It's a vapor. It's fragile. If you think you're in control, it's delusional. It can end anytime. You never know when the winds will come and blow. Is it not just delusional to think that you have control over every aspect of your life? But it's more than that for James. It's not just an innocent issue that's kind of laughable and funny, like driving a shopping cart with a steering wheel or thinking you've influenced the sound person by telling them to turn something up and think they did. It's more like the wolf and the shadow. It's destructive and harmful to yourself and others to live under this illusion of control. And ultimately, deep, deep pride is what's surfacing here. And it elevates people to the position of God where they don't think that they need God. Thinking they're in control of things they are not in control of. And to James, he uses a word, it's sin. It's a sin of pride. And they are confused, James says. They're confused by their pride. This is what it says in verse 16. You are boasting about your own pretentious plans, and all such boasting is evil. Like the wolf and its shadow. Like the prideful merchants. Like thinking if you have lots of money, you can rule the world and that you're unstoppable. They get consumed by their illusion, by this pride, and that leads to their destruction. C.S. Lewis talks about this kind of pride. This is what C.S. Lewis says. Pride prevents fellowship with God, for as long as you are looking down, you cannot see something that's above you. It's a good image, isn't it? You're looking down so you can't see above yourself. That's what pride is like. You know, James talks a lot about this law he calls the law of freedom. This kind of pride violates the law of freedom, the Jesus law, the law to love God and others above all else, because it distorts your vision. James chapter 1 talked about this mirror. Remember that image of the person who looks in the mirror and doesn't remember what they look like? That's what it's like to be a hearer of the law and not a follower of the law, hearer of the word, not a doer of the word. This image is alive here as well. The prideful person is foolish like that. They don't see. He's saying you see a shadow, not reality. It's like that wolf looking at a shadow. And pride causes us to see our family, friends, and others as objects for us to use to get to where we want to go. Or even as obstacles that are in our way. And this violates the law of freedom, the law of loving God and others. Loving others like yourself. So he reads this person that's standing there reading this to his congregation. Not wanting to look at Joseph or old Bill and the merchants and the farmers, but he reads it. After it sinks in, he realizes with a shock that it was to him too. It was to everyone, not just to the merchants. It's for everyone. And the you in this is us. It's directly to us as well today. It's a warning to us because we can try to control things that we have no business trying to control. Try to control the good and the bad of it and not control all the bad and some control in life. Oh, we just got to let it go. You know, control isn't all bad. I admit that. Sometimes we need some control in our lives for mental and spiritual health. We need some control in our lives. This is about the reaching control of where we don't belong. And I kind of think we live in a bit of a controlling culture where we think we have control over so much. We're very independent. And a lot of us don't really think that we need God. He's optional. God is actually a good add-on, actually, to make your life even better after you've got your 2 kids and dogs and whatever you need. God's a good option, actually, because maybe it makes your life better. And actually, just as an insurance policy, maybe you can just have a great life here and believe in God a bit and go to heaven. That sounds good. Insert sarcasm in case you don't know me. But that's all he's good for. We're so independent. We have so much. Many of us don't really think that we need God anymore. A lot of us struggle with giving God our time because our time is our own. We own it. We're in control of our time, and God gets the scraps. And our mortality, we hide from that. We sanitize death. We don't talk about it. Death is ignored or denied. And it's the illusion of control. And I do it too, actually. Sometimes when I'm preparing a message, I feel like maybe God's telling me to say this, and then I'm like, I just better study a little bit more. Just to make sure that, I got this. And it happens too with independence for me. Like, I really like to be an independent person. Sometimes I think, maybe I just don't even need anybody. Maybe I'm okay all by myself. That's pride speaking. Sneaks into all of our lives. The solution is to say, thy kingdom come. That's the solution. James gives a way out. He just doesn't leave us hanging here and stay here. He wants us to experience freedom. He says in verse 15, what you ought to say is, if the Lord wants us to, we will live and do this or that. It's a shift in perspective. Knowing that we are creation and he is creator. It's like the kingdom prayer, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. It's putting God's kingdom priorities first in our lives. It's a shift from the illusion of control to letting God in, to acknowledging that he's in control, that we are creation and he is creator. And it's not so bad. James is telling us this isn't so bad. The kingdom reversal and gain is freedom. Humility is letting go and hanging on to the right things. That's what real freedom is. So there's some kingdom postures. The kingdom posture is humility. It's the opposite of hubris. Humility means acknowledging God in our lives and the image of God in other people. And humility postures us to love other people. It also challenges us to live as a kingdom priority, seeking the things of the kingdom above our own things, and to practice kingdom practices. Someone said the other day, I really liked this. She said, sometimes I think with people, it's really difficult, but I think you just fake it to make it. I think kingdom practices can be like that if you've got the other things in place. Sometimes you just got to do it. Sometimes loving people is difficult. Who said it was easy to pray for your enemies? I don't think that's supposed to be easy. You just got to fake it to make it. You got to do it. And you get better at it. That's a kingdom practice. James wants us to understand something. He's imploring. He's telling stories. He's showing rewards and consequences. But more than that, there's something deep driving all of this. It's not about rules and regulations, not about laws and legalism or about fear and fatalism. It's about the freedom that's offered for being a follower of Jesus. It's about abundant living. It's about real living. It's about the eternal in the now and the then, which means living your best life starting right now. It's about gain, not loss. This is what the Apostle Paul says that reinforces all that James is saying. Everything else is worthless when compared with the infinite value of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord. For his sake, I've discarded everything else, counting it all as garbage, so I could gain Christ. I want to give you maybe a glimpse or a picture of this in life. As a pastor, sometimes I get invited into situations that others don't. Sacred times, sacred situations that are a bit private, and I get to talk to people at places in their life where they're vulnerable. And I remember meeting with this man that was terminal. He's near the end of his life. He knew it. And I just asked him, how's it going? How is life going right now? And he said, surprisingly, it was going really well. And it's really weird when you think about that, right? It's going really well, and he's terminal. Think about that. And I asked him how he was doing and why it was going well. And there's a shift in perspective, he says, and I live my life day by day. Sounds like a cliche, doesn't it? But it's one of those things that sometimes takes the whole life to learn and the deathbed to learn that secret of living for the kingdom. That we put the kingdom values first and other things last. That's the secret to living the life of the kingdom. To live day by day in God's grace and to let go. And this is what James is telling us. Don't wait till your deathbed to do this. Let go and put God's hands on things. You are his. Letting go is freedom and flourishing because it is grabbing on to Jesus. The message is let go and grab on. May you do so and release that illusion of control in your life.